Hello, and welcome to Silent Pages. Have you ever found something small that completely changed a life? Today, you will hear a touching story about a woman and a tiny key that opened a big secret. This story will help you improve your English in a calm and simple way. On Silent Pages, we learn English through emotional stories and real feelings. If you want to speak English with more confidence, listen carefully and practice with me. Please subscribe to Silent Pages and like this video. It really helps our channel grow and bring you more beautiful stories. Now, take a deep breath, relax, and let's begin. I will read one sentence at a time. Pause the video after each sentence and repeat after me. Try to copy the speed and intonation. Don't worry about mistakes. Repeat until the sentence feels natural. Keep practicing. My name is Sofia Martinez. This is the story about a small key I found and how it opened more than a lock. I work in a small bookshop on Willow Street. The shop smells of coffee and old paper. Every day I open the shop and arrange books. I like to help people find stories. My owner, Mr. Lee, is kind and quiet. He loves history books. One rainy morning, a man returned a heavy book from the attic. He said, "I changed my mind about this book." I put the book on the counter and I saw something fall out. It was a small brass key with a leaf pattern. It looked old. I held it and I felt a little thrill. I asked the man, "Do you know whose key this is?" He shook his head. The book's name was Willow Street Stories. The man smiled and left his umbrella. I cleaned the key and put it in my apron pocket. The day went on. People came in for tea and pages. A girl asked for a fairy tale. An old woman asked for local history. At noon I walked to the square and I sat on the bench. I turned the key in my hand and I wondered, who lost it? Why was it in that book? I thought of the old buildings on our street. I thought of the small house with the blue door. Hello, and welcome to Silent Pages. Have you ever found something small that completely changed a life? Today, you will hear a touching story about a woman and a tiny key that opened a big secret. This story will help you improve your English in a calm and simple way. On Silent Pages, we learn English through emotional stories and real feelings. If you want to speak English with more confidence, listen carefully and practice with me. Please subscribe to Silent Pages and like this video. It really helps our channel grow and bring you more beautiful stories. Now, take a deep breath, relax, and let's begin. I will read one sentence at a time. Pause the video after each sentence and repeat after me. Try to copy the speed and intonation. Don't worry about mistakes. Repeat until the sentence feels natural. Keep practicing. My name is Sofia Martinez. This is the story about a small key I found and how it opened more than a lock. I work in a small bookshop on Willow Street. The shop smells of coffee and old paper. Every day I open the shop and arrange books. I like to help people find stories. My owner, Mr. Lee, is kind and quiet. He loves history books. One rainy morning, a man returned a heavy book from the attic. He said, "I changed my mind about this book." I put the book on the counter and I saw something fall out. It was a small brass key with a leaf pattern. It looked old. I held it and I felt a little thrill. I asked the man, "Do you know whose key this is?" He shook his head. The book's name was Willow Street Stories. The man smiled and left his umbrella. I cleaned the key and put it in my apron pocket. The day went on. People came in for tea and pages. A girl asked for a fairy tale. An old woman asked for local history. At noon I walked to the square and I sat on the bench. I turned the key in my hand and I wondered, who lost it? Why was it in that book? I thought of the old buildings on our street. I thought of the small house with the blue door. A week later, the town learned of new plans for the river block. A developer wanted to buy and demolish the old school and the small houses to build a shopping center. The news spread fast. People talked with worry. The school where Mrs. Alvarez taught was empty now. Children played in new parks, but the old building had a long history. A petition started in the market. Some neighbors wanted money. Some neighbors wanted to preserve their memories. I went to the meeting in the library hall. The mayor came with papers. The developer's man spoke with a crisp voice and clean shoes. He said the plan would bring jobs and new shops. He showed pictures of lights and glass. Mrs. Alvarez came with me, and she listened with small hands clasped. At the end, the mayor said, "We will decide next month." The room left heavy with tension. The next day, someone broke the lock on the old school basement. Important boxes were missing. The principal shouted, and the police wrote notes. I knew the trunk and its papers could matter. Later, I learned that the developer had legal papers and some old deeds. He wanted to prove the town had no claim and that the land belonged to a company long ago. If the company papers were true, many families would lose their rights. I worried for Mrs. Alvarez. She had memories and old letters that told the history of the school and the neighborhood. If those letters were gone, we might lose our truth. At night, I could not sleep. I thought about the key in her hand and the trunk she could not open. I thought about the missing boxes. The next morning, I walked to the old school. There were marks on the doors and a smell of dust. A neighbor named Luis said they searched the archives. They took old plans. I felt a cold in my chest. I wanted to help more than letters. I wanted to protect our small stories. I met other volunteers in the square. We spoke softly. We must find the missing papers. We checked basements and attics. We asked the bank for records. When the bank said the developer had partial papers, some people lost hope. Some said, "We cannot fight big money." Others said, "We will try." The petition grew, but the mayor had a deadline. The company filed a claim to start demolition in 2 weeks. I felt the weight of the town on my shoulders. I went home and I opened my desk. I found a folded map Mrs. Alvarez had given me earlier. It had an X near the school basement. I decided then to look for the trunk and for the truth. I did not know if I could find it. I only knew I would try. I spent days searching. I checked attics and old trunks in neighbors' homes. I walked through alleys and into hidden storerooms. I showed the key to plumbers and to janitors. Many people shook their heads. Then Anna, the young lawyer from the town clinic, saw me with the key and she stopped. Anna had short hair and quick hands. She said, "Sophia, this key looks like the key my grandfather used on the school boxes." She asked to see the map and she studied it. Anna said, "There is a pattern of numbers and one note. Vault under the stage. We went to the school together at dawn. The gates were closed, but a janitor named Ben let us in. He trusted Anna and he trusted me. We crept into the dark hall with our phones as lights. The stage had old curtains and a dust line from many plays. Beneath the stage, we found a small iron door with a rusty lock. My hand shook. I put the key in the lock and it turned slowly with an old sound. The door opened and inside was a wooden trunk tied with rope. The trunk smelled of cedar and paper. Anna and I lifted the heavy lid. There were letters, yellowed maps, school registers, photos of children, and a thin book with names. On top lay an envelope stamped with the old town seal. I read a letter aloud. It was a record of donations and a note that the land belonged to the town if the school served the children. The letter spoke of a promise between families and teachers. We felt a shock of joy but also fear. If the developer had forged papers, this trunk could help. We took photos and copies. We kept the trunk safe in the bookshop until we had help. Anna called a historian friend from the university. He read the letters, and he confirmed the old seal and signatures. The pieces began to fit like a puzzle. We showed the papers to the community and more people joined. A retired notary named Mr. Chin came forward with an old ledger. He said, "These names are real. My father signed this." The town spoke more loudly now. The mayor could not ignore the papers and the voices. The developer attempted to claim the trunk was planted, but neighbors gave witness statements. A young journalist wrote an article and it went online. People from other towns shared the story. In the market, children painted banners and the school choir sang old songs. Our small movement became a force. The company tried to speed the decision. They sent a legal team with new filings. Anna worked day and night in the small office. I helped by copying letters and calling old residents. Many nights we sat around the trunk and we read every line. Sometimes we cried. Sometimes we laughed at silly notes. In time, the court accepted the old letters as evidence. The judge read and the city paused the demolition. The developer tried to settle with money, but many families said no. They wanted to keep their history. The mayor proposed a new plan to restore the school and to create a community center that would keep small shops and the library. The lawyer said it would take time. We prepared for months. While the legal process moved slowly, our community worked in action. We cleaned the school grounds. We repainted fences. Craft people made chairs and volunteers rewired lights. I taught children to repair books and to record old stories. The Marine of Neighbors made food for work days. Anna turned the trunk into a traveling exhibit so more people could read the letters. Schools visited and the children asked questions about the old names. Mr. Chen told stories of his father. Mrs. Alvarez sat with young students and she pointed to names in the book. Her eyes filled with light, and the days of fear began to soften. In the end, the court ruled for preservation, and the company withdrew the claim. The town celebrated with a festival. We hung lights, and we read from the trunk on the stage. People cried and hugged. The mayor came and he said, "Today we protect our story." The new community center opened with a library, a room for crafts, and a small legal help desk. We used part of the land for small shops and for a garden. I kept the key in a small glass case behind the counter of the shop. Many children touched the key and they asked questions. I told them the story and they smiled. Anna kept working to help other towns and I kept teaching book repair. Mrs. Alvarez moved her trunk into the new library room and the old letters rested in a safe place. The trunk taught us how a small object can hold the truth of many lives. People said my name with a friendly tone and they said, "You helped, Sophia." I felt shy, but I also felt proud. The town found a way to balance change and memory. The developer learned that money cannot always buy a community. Our small key opened a trunk and a new path for many people. I learned a lot from that year. I learned that small things can have big meaning. A tiny key brought people together. Old letters reminded us of promises. I learned that history is not only names on paper. History lives in people who remember. I learned to listen to older voices and to trust young ones. I learned that courage is not a loud action. Courage can be a quiet decision to show up. I was afraid many times. I did not always know what to do. But I acted with small steps. I knocked on doors. I asked questions. I rode my bike early to find people. I learned to call others and to ask for help. I learned that the law can help, but community action matters too. When neighbors share stories, they make strong evidence. I learned to copy letters carefully and to keep records. I learned to speak in public. My voice used to shake, but practice made it clearer. I learned to care for my town like a plant. We water it, we remove weeds, we watch it grow. I found joy in small details. A child reading a name. A new seed in the garden. A letter returned to its box. I also learned to forgive people who worry about money. Some families said wrong things, but they were afraid. Fear makes people act in many ways. I learned to be patient. The work took months and sometimes years. But patience taught me persistence. I learned that truth is not always fast, but it moves steadily. I learned that we can protect our places when we work together. I learned that a shop, a library, and a stage can hold history and hope. I learned to keep the key in a safe place, but also to show it to children. When I place the key in their hands, I tell them, small tools can open big doors. I now wake earlier and I ride my bike with purpose. I open the shop and I check the trunk in the library. I smile when I hear the children practice a song from the old school plays. Mrs. Alvarez sits by the window and she reads to classes. Sometimes she pats my hand and she says, "Thank you, my dear." I say, "We did this together." The town taught me how to stand up for what we love. These lessons stay with me. They are the best books I have ever read. My name is Sophia Martinez, and this is the story of the key I found. Thank you for listening to my story. Pause now and repeat the last line slowly. Shadow my voice and try to feel each sentence. Practice this story to build your speaking confidence and your rhythm. If you liked this lesson, please like and subscribe so we can make more stories for you. Share which sentence was hardest in the comments. Keep practicing and see you next time. Goodbye and keep learning.